Okay, what have we said? First of all, the name of this essay is that at Mount Sinai, God he he was amazed. The angels were amazed that the Jewish people said, "We will do the Torah and then we will receive it," because that's what the angels do. They say, "Osed Deborah." It says that the Jews do what God says, and then they understand. Then they understand. It would say one second. It says, "Oh, yes." It says, "Lishmoa Osed Devorah Lishmoa B'Kol Devorah." That the angels, they do what God says, and then they understand. Then they have an appreciation of God. Okay, and the Rebbe also asked another question. What's this idea of giving the Torah at Mount Sinai? And there has to be, first of all, the Jewish people were in exile and they suffered. And then when God gave the Torah, so there were these big lightning and thunder, and the world shook, and their souls jumped out of their bodies. It says that Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they did the whole Torah before it was given. So why, if it was already given, so what's all this fanfare and, the whole chapters of the Torah repeated over and over again that God gave the Torah? And not only that, when God did give the Torah, what did he give? He gave, at that time when he gave the Torah, he gave only the 10 commandments. And Moses, he came down with the tablets 40 days later. That was all the other commandments. And he didn't even give them because he broke the tablets. The tablets with all the other laws of the Torah. Moses came down after 40 days, but he didn't give that because he broke that. He broke them. And he went up another 40 days, and then he went up another 40 days. So altogether, the Jewish people received the whole entire Torah 120 days after Moses went up on Mount Sinai. Why? I mean, Abraham already did the whole thing before. What did you have to wait for? Okay, so up to now, the Rebbe has answered that the whole purpose of the Torah was that we should fear God. And fearing God means that every person should be aware of the fact that God is creating us from nothing. And the Rebbe explained, that's what we got up to now, how nothing we are. We're infinitely more nothing than we can possibly imagine that we're nothing. Our whole being, not just our consciousness or our senses or whatever, our whole being, the whole being of the entire universe, including the angels, it depends every instant on the Creator, every instant. So our whole being depends on God. When a person thinks about that, that's pretty shaky. And when you realize that we're here for a reason, and that reason is the Torah, and that's really what's keeping us in existence. So then, when you do the Torah and the commandments, you have tremendous awe, and you want to call it value, reverence, you want to call it. So it's like if a person is given a piece of glass or something, and someone comes along and says, "Wow, that is a genuine, whatever it is, Australian diamond that's worth $4 billion." No such thing like that. All of a sudden, you're holding it. Wow, I didn't know how valuable this thing is. You better hide that thing because somebody's going to steal it from you, and you better not lose it. It's worth. It's the same thing. Every word of the Torah is incredibly more valuable than a $1 billion diamond. And it's ours. And that's what we got at Mount Sinai. At Mount Sinai, we got the realization, the awareness of what God is and how important his Torah is. Oh. So it says, and really, when God gave the 10 commandments, because he revealed himself, so from that point on, it would have been impossible to do any sins. Because what is a sin? The Jewish people have this message to the whole world. Man is good. The world is good. God is close. Every human being has a direct relationship with God. You don't have to have anything in the middle. Every human being in the world is being created by God. The Jewish people are chosen to tell the world exactly this. The Jewish people have a sense of this. It's called a hidden love of God. Every Jew has. That's what the Jews have. It says when God revealed himself at Mount Sinai, so everyone felt how good and close God is. Everyone felt how good human beings are. God is creating us. Everyone felt how good the world is. God is creating in the world. Everyone felt. So no one would rouse up in a person's thought to go against God. Why? He's creating us. He's giving us everything. Why should I, go against him? It's like somebody who's giving you, $1 million every day, but you decide you're going to steal $5 on the side. He says, I'm giving this money, $1 million every day, just on one condition. Don't steal anything. You say, I'm going to steal a lollipop or something. I'm going to steal, I want it. You got to buy all the lollipops you want. God is creating us. He's giving us everything, right? How could we possibly go against God? He says, well, it's very simply because we don't feel him. Well, at the time of Mount Sinai, everybody felt God. Everyone felt they were being created, and everyone felt they were being created for a purpose. And therefore, there was no death anymore. There was no more heaven. People wouldn't go to heaven because this world is infinitely higher than heaven. That's what happened on Mount Sinai. But we know that it didn't last. It says the Jewish people, so therefore it wouldn't be possible. Remember, they said that if it says the one who pours the blood of man in man, we say that if we do a sin, so that, so to speak, weakens God, so to speak, takes away, spills the blood of God. And Mount Sinai, so therefore it was automatic that no one would steal. No one would steal. Automatically, no one would kill. You couldn't, like a person, automatically, a normal person doesn't cut off his finger or his toe. Doesn't. So the same thing, no one would want to be cut off from God. God is creating us. It's our lifeline. It's our creation line. So it says that's the language of the Ten Commandments is in Hebrew grammar. It's a commandment and it's also a promise. Lo tirzach means do not steal, and it means you will not steal. Lo tinaf means do not do forbidden sexual things, and it's a promise. You won't want to do sexual things, etc. But at the time of Matan Torah, the God spoke and said, "Don't kill," and etc. There was because in the future, in Hebrew grammar, future and a commandment are the same form in Hebrew grammar. This is where we got up to. But after the Jewish people sinned with the golden calf. Now you can ask a question, which is a good question, and maybe the answer is not so good as the question. But the question is, one second, if God really destroyed all of the desire to do bad things, and everyone saw God's oneness, so how did the Jewish people worship the golden calf? So the answer is confusion. The answer is the Jewish people got confused. That's one half of the answer. The other half of the answer is that God wants us to have an selfish impulse. He wants us to be selfish. That's why he's creating us. Angels have no problems, right? Angels have no problems. Angels have no, wow, look at that old angel over there, right? Somebody that's not that angel is somebody's wife, don't you? But look at her, wow, I'll steal her, I'll take her. Look at that angel's, car. Why does he have another's car? Angels don't have any possessions or things that you can steal and kill one another, but human beings do. And because human beings do, so therefore there has to be a commandment. Don't kill, don't steal. But when God gave the Torah, it was obvious that if this is what God wants, I'm not going to do it. But that's only when you feel God. And it's possible for a person, because that's why God created us, to feel himself or herself separate entity from God. That's the way God wants the world. And he wants us to turn our mind. That's the commandment of don't worship idols, right? Don't think about yourself, right? All these other religions are, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go to heaven. I'm going to get to heaven, I won't be going to hell. I'm going to heaven. I think about yourself. And Judaism is thinking about the Creator. But it's not 100% foolproof. And as soon as Moses wasn't there to encourage the Jewish people, they thought Moses was going to come back down. So after the Jewish people sinned, Now we have to have, and this was when did they sin? 3,300 years ago. After the sins, now we have to work. This is by means of Diborenu. How do we fix up the sin of the golden calf? By saying the words of Torah. When we say the words of Torah, Mamshich, we draw it down little by little from God's upper will. I will put my words in your mouth. And by means of this, by means of this, there won't be any more sin in the world. Okay, there won't be any more sin in the world, and everybody, in other words, people will know not to do sins. Hey, want to worship a golden calf? I did that. We did that already. I thought it would work also. No good. It's not good. What about, going to the church? Huh? What about doing it? Same thing as the golden calf. It's tempting, it's promising, but it's not it. I'm not going to do it. But this is only after the exile, after we've worked hard in order to fix the things up. Okay, so now we have the Torah, and the Torah is the same Torah that God gave at Mount Sinai, right? Despite what the Muhammad said, it's the same exact Torah we get, and the Jews have been learning it and reading it nonstop since then. And the Torah comes in two forms. Torah comes in one form as the written Torah, and then there's what's the explanation of the Torah. The explanation of the Torah, that's when the church comes in. It says the explanation of the Torah is wrong. It's not so. It's a big lie. The written Torah is the same exact Torah that God gave, whose God is creating us, the exact same. And the explanation is the proper explanation. That's what all of the rabbis said. That's okay. So the Torah was given to even Moses, when Moses came down from Mount Sinai. I mean, listen, let's just, let's take 1 minute on this, half a minute. Moses came down from Mount Sinai and he brought the Torah. He brought the Torah. After he broke the tablets, he came down with the second tablets, 120 days later, right? Okay, I invite everyone to open up the Bible, which is disparagingly called the Old Testament, which is not old. It is the only Testament. Open it up and read the commandments. See if you understand anything, any commandment. And if you do understand, you're wrong. Right? If you do understand, you're wrong. Don't kill. What does don't kill mean? Simple commandment, don't kill. Maybe it means don't kill bacteria. Maybe you can never kill. After that, it says that in Shabbat, it says that if a person doesn't keep the Shabbat, he dies. So you're not supposed to kill, but who can kill? Right? The courts are supposed to kill the person if a person doesn't keep Shabbat. Oh, so you can kill, or you can't kill, or maybe you can just do what you want to, or maybe. And what does it mean, Shabbat? What are you supposed to do on Shabbat? What are you supposed to do? Why should you get killed if you don't keep Shabbat? You light on a fire, you get killed. That doesn't make any sense. This is really not. So if you don't have an explanation, then the whole thing makes no sense, which that's basically what the church is based on. You just do whatever you want, basically. And that's wrong. That's wrong. Okay, so the Torah, it says, is a tree of life. Why? Because the Torah is the will and the wisdom of God. The written Torah, this is what's called the tree of life. And the oral Torah, that's called, in the Zohar, the tree of good and evil. Why? Because the written Torah, every word is pure and it's true. But it's not practical. It's not practical in the world. It doesn't come into the world. It's just pure. And the oral Torah, the Talmud, that comes into the world. That deals with actual, physical, practical explanations, arguments, what you might think it means, what this person thinks it means, what that arguments, what does the word, in other words, to put all the ideas in the Torah into our minds, into our hearts, into our mouth, our limbs, that we should make it practical into the world. And that's why it's called the tree of good and bad. Why the tree of good and bad? Because it comes to separate the good from the bad. Huh? When you learn the oral Torah, the Talmud, so you're learning about all these nasty things. about murder and rape and lying and cheating and this thing, and trying to explain, right, exactly where these things come from and why that's an option to do, and you shouldn't take that option. Shouldn't take the option of doing bad. And it explains what exactly is bad and what exactly is lying and what exactly is, licentiousness and what exactly is murder and what. Gamal Derech Moshe, for instance, a time when a person learns the laws of what makes an animal forbidden for a Jew and what makes an animal permissible for a Jew. When you learn these laws, Nasa Bura, you refine and you separate between what is impure and pure. And that separates all evil from good. And when you separate evil from good, then the evil melts in front of fire. Because the whole essence of evil can only exist when there's good, to get nurture from the good. Until the days of the Mashiach, She'evir Mashiach will come and he'll pass away the spirit of impurity from the world. With that explains the why anti-Semitism is really pro-suicide. All these groups that they're against the Jews and the religions that are against the Jews, if God forbid there was no Jews, they would be gone. They would be dissipated in a second, because their whole nurture of these other religions and ideas, it comes only from the Jews. It's only from, even the non-religious Jews. They have the potential to do what it says in the Torah. That potential is a connection to good. And without the connection to good, it's like cutting a limb off of a tree. The tree, as much as you hate the tree itself, but if you're sitting on the limb, you cut that limb off, you've cut yourself off from the tree, the trunk of the tree. Same thing, the Jewish people, they're the source of life for the whole world, because God gave the Torah to the Jews. And even if the Jews don't do the Torah, but they have the potential. And Jews not doing the Torah, that gives more life and energy to the church and to the Muslims and all these things, to the communists, because Jews don't do the Torah. That's why all these groups usually, they have to talk about the Jews. They have this obsession with talking about the Jews. Why can't they just leave it alone, right? The Buddhists, they go against the Jews. The Ahmed against the Jews. They got to go against the Jews, right? And what's the reason why? The reason is because all the life force in the world comes through the Jews. And the job of the Jews is supposed to be to separate between good and bad, that there will be a world, but there won't be bad things in the world. And that's done through the Torah to determine what is good and what is bad. And especially the oral Torah, the Talmud, that describes what's bad and good. Without the oral Torah, there's no real such thing as bad and good. You don't know what murder is, you don't know what stealing is, you don't know nothing. Nothing is forbidden. Everything goes. Right? If you just have the written Torah, everything goes. You can excuse anything you want to, and the Jews have managed to do that. They managed to excuse everything, even religious Jews, right? That's why the temple was destroyed. They used the Torah and they excused bad things. It doesn't mean that the Torah is, outdated, or that the Torah is impotent or whatever. It's just the Torah. It can't control people. It only can give us the option to do good. But when we do good, and there's nasa birur, it refines and it separates between what's bad and good, etc. And until Yemot Mashiach, that's what the Mashiach is going to do, that he'll pass away the spirit of impurity from the world. Because even it says, Bayomahu, on that day, it says God will be one and his name will be one. What does it mean? Lahave echad be'echad. That God's oneness will be one with the world. God's name is like the world. He creates the world from his word, from his name, sorry. So God will be one with his name, and we'll see, why is God doing this? Why is he creating the world? Why is he doing it? That's the whole thing of the Bible. God is creating a world. Why is he doing it? Why is he making, and according to Chassidut, wants to point out that he's doing it constantly. He's creating the world. Why? The answer is because God is good and the world is good and humans are good, and God wants us to see it. But it's covered over. That's the commandment of seeing God. Ria. It says that 3 times a year the Jewish people would go up to the Holy Temple and they would see, all the males would go see God. Just like you came to be seen, you would come to see God. Just like from above to below, from above to, from God's point of view, everything in front of God is like nothing. God is the only real reality. Also, we'll look at it from below to above. We'll see that God is the only real reality. And what does it mean that God is the real reality? That this world is an amazing, amazing miracle. Amazing miracle. And every detail, every second, every human being is precious beyond imagination. We'll look at the world from God's point of view. That the world is nothing and God is creating. That's what it means. Eye to eye, we will see God. That our physical eye will see, and it'll see the world, look at reality the same way that God looks at the world. And that's what happened in Mount Sinai. It says that they saw the voices. Voice is a thing that you understand. You can't see a voice. And in Mount Sinai, everybody saw what was just explained to them about what we're talking about now. God is one. God is creating us. We hear about it, but we don't see it. We don't feel it. And the Mount Sinai, they saw it and they felt it. Mashiach will purify the world that again we'll see it and we'll feel it. To do what's straight in the eyes of God. But now, when there is no temple, we say, we cannot see God and we can't bow down. What do you mean we can't bow down? You can bow down. Want to bow down? Bow down. It'll take a couple of seconds from the class. Take the 1 minute break. You bow down. It says you're not supposed to bow down on bricks or something like that. So put a carpet down on the floor or something like that, and bow down. Bow down as much. When didn't we know there's no temple? We can't see God and we can't bow down. What does it mean we can't bow down? Bowing down in this case means surrender to God. We're never really surrendering to God. We're always thinking about ourselves. Because of our sins. Our sins separate between us and God. Now, what does a sin mean? Why does it separate between us and God? Because generally speaking, sins feel good. If for no other reason that I just wanted to do something and I did it, so that fortifies my existence. I can do what I want. And if it feels good, even more, I can do it. It makes me feel good. And once you do something that makes you feel good, then you start to feel that I am the reality. I am God. I'm the ultimate reality. I'm the ultimate reality. And I make sacrifices to myself. Right? Just like God was pleased with the sacrifices because they brought an animal or whatever. So I'm pleased also. I get a car, I get whatever. I'm happy. Perish, what does it mean? Sha'avim, what's a sin? A sin makes you separate. What is a sin? A sin makes you feel yourself. The hefesh bein riyat ha'ayin, that's the difference between how you look at the world and how God looks at the world. That's what sins do. They said by means of this, God, it says, goes away. V'nar yechara v'yovesh, it says that the river of reality dries up. It's destroyed and dries up. Yecharev, it got destroyed on the first temple and it dried up in the second temple. Shafilu b'bechinas vayid rishon, that even in the first temple, that's like the level of Bereshit that everybody felt that God is creating the world all the time. That Bereshit is one of the utterances of God. That's what we call Chachma. So to speak, it was destroyed and it went away. There was no, people felt only themselves. How much more so when it got dried up in the second temple? This is just revelation, not of God's wisdom, but God's goodness, etc. So people simply didn't feel themselves. If they didn't feel God, and when you don't feel God, you feel yourself. To the degree that nowadays there's big professors and everything say there's no such thing as God. What are you talking about? There's no God. They write books about it, make movies about it, right? There's no such thing as God. And they have got a good point, excellent point. According to all the standards of perception and measurement and science and everything, there's nothing that even indicates vaguely that there's such a thing as God. And maybe there's religious people that say maybe millions of billions, trillions of years ago, God created the world a long time ago, some sort of a force. He created the, could be. But what about now? Yeah. Now I feel myself. I'm reality. So the Rebbe says it's not so. The fact of the matter is it's not so. The world is being created. And if you think about it for 1 second, it sort of makes sense because you can explain how that, you know, that there's oh, excuse me. You can explain that there's a, you know, the order of creation. It started off with amoebas and it got more and more, you know, developed and developed. Okay, so you can say maybe, you know, God created a long time ago, or maybe not. But what's creating it now? What's creating the world? What's keeping the world in existence right now? So the answer is it just exists. That's all. Why? How can you say anything like that? How can, where does existence come from? Where does it come from? So you can say there was a famous book written by, what was it, one of these big French existentialists, was the being and nothingness. The being and nothing. The world exists. Where did it come from? It came from nothing. And that's what it is now. It's nothing. There's no meaning. There's no purpose. There's no goal. There's no past. You just make the most of it. There's nothing. Huge book, like, I don't know, 1,000 pages, explaining how there's really nothing. I mean, I'm sure you would know if nobody bought his book, he would feel bad. So I mean, the book is nothing, and he's nothing. How does existence come? So it says we don't feel it, and we don't even care about it. We know that I feel myself. How can we feel the truth that God is creating us? How can we feel? It depends on tshuva. It by means of tshuva. What does it mean, tshuva? Returning to the truth. Tshuva Maisim told him. Tshuva means to return. What does it mean to return? Think for 1 second. Just think. Where are you coming from? Where are you coming from? Right now. What is bringing you into existence? Think about it. Okay, that's a little bit hard. What's keeping me alive? Right? That's a little bit hard for you to think about. Okay, what is directing the sun and the moon and this things? Little by little, you can come to the conclusion that maybe there is something except more real than me. Maybe there's something more real than me. And then you come to all the other religions and things like that. Tshuva means you're thinking, where does reality come from? Where do the Jewish people come from? Where did this idea of Jews? Where does the Torah come from? Why do they keep insisting that the Torah is true? It comes from God. Why do Jews do the commandments? I don't know if I told you the story. I think, did I tell you the story? Anyway, I'll tell you the story anyway. Every day I go and put tefillin on people. Since the war started, I decided I'm going to go put on tefillin. So I go to this nearby hospital and I stand outside, you know, when the visitors come. And I asked them to put on tefillin. A lot of people put on. Anyway, so there was one fellow sitting there with a broken leg, and he has 2 friends. This fellow with the broken leg is totally not religious. Totally not religious. But sometimes he puts on, a young guy, yeah, maybe in his 20s. And he has a friend that's also totally not religious. He never puts on tefillin. And then he has another friend that's an Arab. All young guys. I mean, I don't know if you know it, but the Arabs that live in Israel, there's like 2 million Arabs living in Israel. We're not talking about the Palestinian stuff, a big bluff. There's about 2 million Arabs living in Israel. Right, living in Israel, and they're Israeli Arabs, and they're citizens. They're citizens of Israel, and they're even in the Knesset. They decide our fate. The whole thing is, it's just so insane. But anyway, and so this Arab, he's sitting there and he's saying, so I put tefillin on the Jewish guy. He said, okay, I'll put on tefillin. And the other guy said he didn't want to. And I said to the Arab, you're an Arab, right? And he said, yes, I am. I think he was there before. In any case, he said he is. I said, well, you know, the Jews have been putting on these tefillin for 3,300 years. And he said, yeah, but it's not the same Jews. I said, really? Not the same Jews? I said, Jews, you know, the same definition of Jews has been from the beginning. You know, if your mother is Jewish, you converted according to Torah. That's. And he said, no, that's not the same Jews. And then not the same Bible either. The Jews, they lost the Bible, lost the Torah. So I said, okay, you know, can you explain to me why this fellow just put on these tefillin? Why he put on? He's not religious. He doesn't care about God doesn't care about going to heaven or hell, right? He's just as Jewish as you are, right? Doesn't do any commandments, doesn't keep Shabbat, doesn't keep anything whatsoever, right? Externally, it's just, why did he put on the tefillin? Why? Because he thinks I'm a nice guy. He's afraid of me. This guy didn't put on. Why did he put on tefillin? He said the reason he did it because it's true, and because he's a Jew. And he's a Jew. It's something that's connected to God that God made. It's an eternal thing. And he said, you have to read the Quran. So I said, I read the Quran. The fact is, I read it. I did read it. I did read it. I read the book. And I said, and so what's that got to do with anything? And what's it got to do with anything? Just that what I'm trying to say, that's what tshuva means. Tshuva means going back to who you are. Going back to who you really are. The Jewish people really are the sons of God. What that means, nobody knows, but it's true. And every Jew feels it. That's tshuva, going back to who you are. And maisim tovim, to do good deeds, not just to suffice with your identity, but all the Jews are also servants of God. Avodayim. That's what happened in Mount Sinai. So tshuva means going back to who you are. Every Jew is the son, daughter of God. And doing good deeds. Every Jew is a servant of God. That's our identity. By revealing who we really are, yidgaleh or we reveal the light that is good. Hainu al yedei merirus nafsho, bitterness of our soul about the not good things that we did, mari dechushban. But now you say, what does it mean you can do tshuva? Tshuva means that you're bitter about doing the bad things. Why? Because you were ignorant. And why were we ignorant? Because that's the way God made us. So that's one of the reasons that God accepts all excuses for any sins that we did, especially nowadays that there's no temple. In the time of the temple, it was a little bit harder because everybody felt and knew God. But now we can say, listen, God, I all I felt was myself. And I mean, I don't like to say it, but you're the blame. You made me that way. That's what it means. As soon as you make an accounting, okay, good. I made a mistake. I got excuses. I'm not trying to get out of the thing. I'm just trying to find some way to mitigate my sin that, don't wipe me out. 90% of the reason I did it, the sin was because I just didn't know. I just didn't feel. I didn't. Okay, so that's what it means. You have to be a Mari de Chushbana. You have to start making a proper accounting. Make a proper accounting. Kamoshahu, as it is. Oh, one second, what happened? Chushbana Kamosha Haya. I'm sorry, just like it was in Egypt. Like it says, Vayomaruat Chayam, it says that the Jews in Egypt, that their lives became bitter because of the hard service. But now we're not in Egypt anymore, right? What's the Rebbe talking about? It says the Rebbe, wrong. You are in Egypt, and who is Paro? You yourself. And you put yourself into Egypt, into this limited way, and you think that you're a servant of the world, and that the world is telling you what to do and what to feel and what to say, and you have to react to everything, and you feel bad and depressed and lustful. Well, that's in Egypt. And that you start to get bitter. As soon as you get bitter and think, hey, listen, I'm not part of the world. I'm a Jew. I'm part of the Creator. I am here to fix up the world. Then, Batal Shavasam, then God listens to our cries. Okay, that's what we said, that's the whole purpose. This is a summary. The whole purpose of Torah and the commandments is to fear God. What do you mean when we say fear God? And we said that there's two levels of fear. Fearing God means I'm not God. I'm fearing God. There's two ways. That's what's called fear God, the holy ones. That's by means of Torah and the commandments. And then there's the lower fear of God. That's the whole world, that they feel they're being created. I know this is revelation that we should feel and look at the world the way that God looks at the world. That God is really real and we are not. We are just creations. That's what it means. To you, God is the greatness. That we call God infinite, great. That's just aspects of God. That's just low aspects of God. How God is great. What is God in his essence? Incomprehensible what God is. And that's the one who gave the Torah. That's revelation at the time of Matan Torah. That's what it means. The advantage of that's why it's what we do now is better than what Abraham did. Why? Because Abraham did it. He came to the conclusion on his own. And we got a revelation, a blast of direct godliness that changes us totally. Lo tirtzach, lo tinaf. That we will not even want to kill, or that's a commandment and it's a promise. But now we have because we did sin with the golden calf. So now we have to fix things up by learning the Torah. And by learning the Torah, it says that we get little by little this revelation of the giving of the Torah. Okay, hine, bechinas riazu, this seeing God and surrender and being harmonious with the Creator. In other words, feeling that we are not an existence on our own, our whole being depends on God creating us. This is what's called lishmoa b'kol davaro. That's what's called to listen to the sound of God. Sim tasim alecha melech. That's what it means to listen to the voice and to cling to God. That's what the angels said. Let's go back to the beginning. Here we go. So that's what the angels do. The angels, again, seeing God, feeling God, this is called what the angels said, that they do what God says, and then they hear God's voice. And that's what happened when the Jews said, Naaseh, we will do what God wants, and then we will understand. That's against human nature. And the angels were amazed. How did the Jewish people know to go against their nature? They said, we'll do it, and then we'll understand it. That's not normal. People usually, they want to understand what they're getting into, and then they do it. Only angels do before they understand. It says, okay, so now we're saying, what we're talking about understanding here means God's reaction. That we hear the voice of God, and this means to cling to God and to be totally negated to God. That's what the angels do, right? That's what the angels do second, number two. But in order to get to this level of being, I say, to get to this level of God presenting himself to us, that we feel God, is before that the angels have to, first of all, precede Leos Ose Deboro. They have to do. What does it mean to do? They accept upon themselves that Malchut Cholamim, they surrender themselves to God's kingship. Shekal Olamot, and realize that all the worlds, upper worlds and lower worlds, are created from something from nothing. Nothing. They're just created from God's kingship. And when angels, realize that they're nothing, then that means that they do what God wants. Then afterwards, they listen to the sound of God. What does it mean? That God reacts and he gives them a big blast of godliness. So first they do, in other words, they realize that they're nothing, and then by means of that, God gives them a reaction, so to speak, that they become something, that they appreciate God. Okay, what's the first step? First step is they realize that they're nothing, and that the angels, and that God is creating them every moment, that their whole existence comes from God. Then when they realize that, then they can listen to the sound of voice, the sound of God, the revelation. Then they can listen. Okay, so first of all, they're negated, the angels negated to God, and then God reacts and sends them a revelation, and then they can listen to God's voice. And that's what the Jews did. The Jews, first of all, they surrendered themselves to God, and Nasa, and then Nishma, then they could hear the voice of God, appreciation of God. Okay, let's do the angels first. The angels, they realized that they're nothing and that God is creating them just from his mouth. That's called his kingship. L'chaor, at first glance, if so, how can it possibly be that God's name will be called on these angels? If the angels are nothing, how can God's name be called on them? Awful, but the Indian is like this, that by means of the Torah and the commandments that the Jewish people learn, we draw down God's will, that God becomes a king. He becomes a king on even the upper worlds. That's what it is, Kadshenu b'mitzvot tov, and then afterwards, God can make us holy with his commandments. That's what it means, blessed are you, God, the king of the world. We say it 100 times a day. What does it mean? that what does it mean, blessed are you, God? That we draw godliness down. We make godliness revealed from his source into the world. God made the world so that he would be concealed. And when we do the commandments and learn the Torah, then that makes God more revealed. We see the creator. That's what it means, Baruch. We draw down God's ata, you. That's God's kindness, his love, and he becomes a king of the world by means that God is our God, and we are his servants. We surrender to him. And then God makes us holy with his commandments. That's what it means. We become holy with his commandments, that we do the commandments because they're God's commandments. We surrender to God. And then the commandments make us holy. What does it mean to make us holy? We make ourselves a vessel, empty ourselves out for the Creator. And that's what it means. Blessed are you, God, the King of the world. There's one mimer where the Rebbe likens it a little bit to a hypodermic needle. A hypodermic needle, if you've ever seen how they use it, they use a syringe. So the syringe is, first of all, empty, and the plunger is right next to the needle. And then they put the needle into the serum or the medicine, whatever it is, and they pull the plunger up, and that draws the liquid into the hypodermic needle. Why? Because the saying, nature abhors a vacuum. It's hard, there can't be a vacuum in the world. As soon as there's something, a lower level of pressure, so the higher level of pressure goes into it, right? So it's the same thing. The principle works by us also. If we hollow ourselves out, then that draws godliness into the world. And so hollowing ourselves out means we say, we'll do whatever you want to, God. We realize that we're nothing. We make a vacuum, so to speak, from ourselves. And then God reacts and he fills it up. Now, this, of course, makes no sense because we can't talk about God like he's a serum or a vacuum. It goes according to the laws of nature, or whatever. But the fact is, from nature, we can learn something about God. And God set up the world in a way that he reacts to what we do. That's the way he set up the world. That's why he created man. That means that we make God a king to the world. We draw down God's kindness and love by making God our God. We surrender ourselves to him. And then God makes us holy with his commandments. Wait about this. Hold on 1 minute. Where does this go up to? It goes up to somewhere. 1 second, 1 minute. I had this before. Yeah. Okay. Behold, the power that is given to this is the Jewish people. God gave the ability to do this to the Jews. Am Karovo is called his close nation. Liot, they're the Gorim, they're the ones that cause. Lahamshich, to draw down God's will into the world. And that's what the angel said, Shagila Razeh, that's the big secret that the angels use to draw godliness into the upper worlds. They surrender themselves to God, and then God replies. And it says that the angel said, who told the Jews the secret? That by surrendering yourself to the Creator, that makes a new blessing in the world. That each and every Jew has lo behester, at least concealed in his heart, this love for God. We just have to bring it out from concealed to be revealed, to appreciate God more. That's what's called tshuva, returning to who we really are. We're not making a new thing, we're just revealing what is. How good God is, how good man is, how close God is, how good the world is. Bring it from concealed to reveal, but we have to work. Yagiyat nefesh b'giyat basar. It's not easy to do. The Rebbe made it seem to be very simple, but the fact of the matter is, it's not simple at all. And that force which made the Jewish people worship the golden calf, that wasn't that suddenly appeared this big devil with a pitchfork and he injected everybody into everybody's soul, whatever it is, LSD or something like that. And then all of a sudden, no. The devil just awakened people's egos. That's all. You know who you are? Yes, I am a servant of God. Oh yeah, where is God? It was just here, a few days ago, Mount Torah with Moses. Where's Moses? Moses went up on Mount Sinai, he just says, maybe he's not coming back. And you're alone? Huh? Maybe you're Moses? Maybe you are God? Everyone said, what are you talking about? He said, watch this. All of a sudden he made a golden calf and everybody said, whoa, this is what I call life. This is reality, right? Let's go for it. Let's do it. Let's be alive. What are we waiting in this desert for? It's so boring out here, right? We're waiting for Moses. He's not going to come back. There's nothing to do, right? There's no television reception. There's nothing to do over here. Except, and on the other hand, look at the golden calf. That's something to do, huh? So either it's total boredom and emptiness, or really having a good time, feeling you're going to be inspired and you're going to go to heaven. You'll do whatever you want. Anything you want, the golden calf will give you. So that's human nature. And when Moses came down, the Jewish people couldn't stop. He had to break the tablets, make big punishments, big this and that. He ground up the golden calf. He had to grind it up. I think if he wouldn't have ground it up, the people would have said, okay, Moses, we'll do tshuva, but just a couple more minutes of this. I'm really having a good time. So we have that same exact egotism now. And even if God would appear to us and give us the Torah and reveal, nevertheless, the feeling of idolatry is strong. Not as strong as it was back then, but it's still strong. Kamo, just like it was when they were in Egypt. And says, now we have to how do we get out of this? By hard work. Like it was in Egypt, it says that we have to be bitter. How could I have gone after my own ego? How could I have gone against the Torah? How could I do it? I feel so terrible. I got to do tshuva tomorrow. But no, I'm going to go back. No, not tomorrow. Okay, not tomorrow. That was a mistake. But another hour? What about another hour? What, are you nuts with that? Okay, not another hour. That's terrible. That's almost blasphemy. But maybe another 5 minutes. Not so good. And even if the person does, he still has in his mind, but I was the boss for a while. I was riding high, top of the world. I was top of the world. So in order to get rid of this feeling and to really have love for God and realize how good God really is, and he's much better than anything we can possibly invent or experience in this world, right? Or in the next world, or even in heaven, is therefore you got to really work. It's really difficult work. And difficult work means you have to really go against and force yourself to turn from bad and to do good. And then you have to try to force yourself to enjoy it and to really think this is the real me. You have to go to reveal this love from what's concealed to be revealed, and that takes a lot of effort. You have to exert your soul and you have to exert your body. You have to force yourself physically to serve the Creator, to do the commandments, turn from bad, just like it was in Egypt. That's what it says in Zohar. It says in the Zohar that what does it mean that they worked in Chomer Bilavenim? That it was Torah. Chomer, this is Kol v'Chomer, a method that the Torah is learned by. And Levanim, this is Libun Hilchos, to clarify the laws. And by means of this, that's what we established with prayer. That's the whole idea of prayer. And this we're going to talk about more, God willing, how prayer fixes us up and connects us back to an awareness of who we really are. Tshuva, returning to true Jewish identity, which will return the whole world to true human identity. People start to listen to their conscience, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. There we go.